just all of these things that I had never experienced in my life. And so I started to search what I could do to like, because I was like, am I going crazy? Like, what am I going through? What is this? What am I feeling? So I just ended up searching and coincidentally found someone who kept telling me about ayahuasca.
Or
This
Brenda,
is cool.
the back bender,
I like your name.
as we used to call you.
No, you used to call me the onion.
Onion booty.
That was my first nickname.
It was. Which one do you prefer?
I don't know. They're both. First of all, Brenda the backbender, who gave me that?
Me.
No, that was not you. Was that you?
Yeah. A little bit closer. There you go. Closer to your mouth. Just like you know.
Stupid. No, you didn't give me Brenda the backbender. If I'm not mistaken, Brenda the backbender came from a song. Yeah.
What song?
Nas. Nas has a song where he says, Brenda the backbender used to have me in a twister. Something, something, something.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. So
I
a
just
friend.
did it because I remember we were at Jack in the Box off the 15 and baseline.
Yeah.
And then you were doing like little like ballet dance moves or something like that and like put your foot like way back there. And I was like, damn. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I
where
remember
it came from. I mean, from you?
I know Brenda's got a baby.
Yeah, Nas has. Is it Nas? I think it's Nas. I'm almost sure it's Nas that has that song. I'm not kidding.
It could be. I take from different places.
So they used to, a few friends used to call me Brenda the backbender because of that. That's so crazy, right?
A little bit, yeah.
And then you guys used to call me the onion.
Onion booty. Yes. My friend's uncle came up with that. Not specifically for you.
For somebody else.
Yeah. He's like,
And then you
"Man."
guys just adopted it for me.
Yeah. Being 14 or 15. And I remember him saying like, man, that girl has an onion booty. And I was like, I'm going to steal that.
Anyway. All
Turn a little. There you go. And then also one of my friend's dad one time said, he's like, man, I'd really like to tongue punch her fart box. Add that to my back pocket as well.
That's a good one.
Just in case, you know.
Can you repeat that, please?
Tongue punch her fart box.
Well, alrighty then.
And that's, again, like what we were talking about when we went to your mom's house. Our conversations are always sexual.
Yeah.
All the time. And then sometimes I'm like, we've had so many, I got to leave this one alone.
Right.
But it's always that.
It's like always like the indirect.
Now, I'm very direct.
I mean, yes, but there's always like the indirect kind of joking combos, insinuations.
Innuendos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's, again, just like every single time like we have a conversation, there's always something in there that you and I can find to be perverted. perverted people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why we get along.
That's why we get along, and that's why we're still friends.
Absolutely. How long now?
I don't know. Long ass time. Well, I mean, I know you since you were a kid, and I mean, at some point you were so like a baby to me. You were like, oh, he's so cute, because you were Jorge's little brother. I mean, I
am his little brother.
I mean, obviously, but you know what I mean.
Right.
At that time, I was 13 when I met Jorge. I went to middle school with him.
I didn't meet you until, because I
met you when I was like in 8th grade. I remember.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
You were a kid. You were super young.
I remember seeing you at Ivan's house.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah, you were a kid.
Yeah. But I remember more interacting with you when we lived in Rialto off of
I would go over.
Yes.
And hang out.
Yes. You and Sophie would come over and we'd hang out.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then by that time I was already in high school, I think, because we didn't move there until I was in high school. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so over 20 years.
And we were already out of high school, or at the last
tail end, yeah.
At the tail end,
yeah. Because I think I might have been like a freshman or a sophomore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you might have been like right out of high school.
Yeah. So yeah, 20 years
More
plus.
Well, not yeah, because I was like 15, 35 now.
Right.
So, damn.
I mean,
We don't look it though.
I know. Thank you.
And then somebody decided to move away.
Yeah.
And be abroad. Live abroad, not be abroad.
And abroad, be abroad
Exactly.
also.
Both.
No, but I moved when I moved Fontana. I moved to Salinas up Northern Cali. So I lived there for about 5 years before I moved to New York.
For 5 years?
Yeah. I lived there from when I was 18 till I was 20. I moved when I was like 24-ish.
And what were you doing in Salinas?
I moved, to be honest, mainly because I was having a lot of family drama. Chaos. My parents were divorced and separated. Well, first they got separated and were living in the same house, but separated.
That's my mom and dad right now.
Oh yeah, that's right. I just found that out. I didn't know this.
I know. Most people
the other night I was like, wait, what? But anyway, so when my parents finally got divorced, there was a lot of going back, and I lived with my mom. But then I didn't have my own space. And then my dad lived on his own, and there was no way of me having space. So it was just this weird dynamic. I was having a lot of like tension with my mom, and I decided to just kind of get away from it. So I moved up to Northern Cali with my grandmother, where one of my tias, my mom's sister, was like, come live with us. And I went with her, started college, ended up getting a job, and just life started happening. And I basically became independent. I started paying rent, blah 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 blah, and I was in Salinas for 5 years.
So you were in your later teens when your parents got divorced.
My parents separated when I was still in high school.
Okay.
So it was like 17
yeah.
And then they actually finally moved out of the house, like where they separated officially and divorced, when I had just graduated, or I was just graduating high school around that time.
See, like my parents have been separated long before then, right? And they didn't divorce until I was probably in my 20s. And I remember my mom telling me, I think we were out on a walk or something like that. She's like, te voy a decir algo. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, tu papá y yo nos vamos a divorciar. And I was like, who am I going to live with? I was just like, is it my fault? No, we're still living in the same household. They've been separated. And I'm like, I think she was trying to like, she thought she was breaking news. And I was just like, haven't you guys been divorced?
Right.
And she was just like, no. And I'm like, oh. So it was more for like taxes more than anything. Like you file separately and I'll file separately.
Right.
But they've been, again, like separated, always amicable. Again, they're divorced now and still, live with me.
In the same house. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting dynamic. No, my parents definitely could not live in the same house after a certain amount of time. And it was like, all right, And I mean, it is what it is. But I moved specifically because of that. That was the
catalyst.
Yeah, absolutely. And then being in Salinas for a while, more like it was so weird, like more family stuff kind of followed me over there.
Yeah.
And around that time that I decided to leave, my brother had just been incarcerated. But at the same time that my brother was incarcerated, my oldest niece, his daughter, was born, and I became her godmother. And I felt the obligation to a certain extent to be present for her life in the absence of my brother.
Would you say it was like a self-imposed obligation? Like you just felt it within yourself?
Absolutely, yeah.
Instead of, something.
Nobody told me. It was just something that I did because, it's family. And I felt like I didn't want my goddaughter, which at the moment that she was born, I didn't know she was going to be my goddaughter, but she's my niece, and she was my very first niece that was born out of, my brother, because my sister, when he met my sister-in-law, she had a 4-year-old.
Okay.
which we fell in love with.
Right.
And my brother, was very present as a father figure. And so to me, she became my niece.
Right. Absolutely. And you just got back from seeing your brother.
Yes.
How was that?
Emotional, very emotional, of
Yeah.
course. I've had contact with my brother since he's been incarcerated, always. But unfortunately, since the pandemic happened, they had been in complete, no visitation rights for some time because of the whole COVID thing. Long story short, I hadn't seen him since 2019.
Oh, wow. 4 years.
Yeah, and so since 2019 to now, I mean, me living in New York, also, whenever I do come out here, in order for me to go see him, I have to really plan that out. This way?
Mm-hmm. There you go. Got to see that pretty face.
Thank you. Um, I really have to plan it out, And sometimes when I've came out here, it's like just a long weekend, or and even now, I'm tired.
I bet.
I am exhausted because since I got here, I've been nonstop. But anyway, I wanted to surprise him, so I surprised him. Me and my mom drove up, and it was very emotional, but also very necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like we hadn't seen each other, and unfortunately, within the time we hadn't seen each other, we had a little bit of a fallout. We had an argument that, we just didn't meet eye to eye on certain things, and he said things that were very hurtful. And me being the prideful female was like, fuck this guy. Fuck you. Nah.
Yeah.
And I kept my distance from him for a while. And so we weren't talking in any form for about, I want to say almost 2 years of that. Yeah. Until finally, he kind of in his way apologized. And even then when he did that, I was pissed and I was like, fuck you. But, I think right now we both have done a lot of work individually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is great because it's not like if we both kind of said, let's do this work together. We've just, the universe has aligned our timing where coincidentally, since I started work roughly about 2 years ago, well, in the end of 2019 was the initial beginning of my healing process. And then I started to really go deeper into my whole self-development and improvement and working on myself.
I remember that.
That my brother was doing something similar. And then I think our time has just aligned to where we're in a place where we can have conversations, even if we don't agree, and still be okay like adults versus attack and what we know or what we're used to, the bad habits of being shut down, our egos hurt and no this, and then you bicker with your sibling because that's what you used to do when you were younger. And unfortunately my brothers have always been in and out of jail, so I didn't have a relationship with my brothers aside from kind of that type of dynamic.
Right.
And so it was always very easy for us to go back to what we knew, the bad habits of the lifestyle that they chose to live. And then me always kind of trying to defend my point of view or my way or my things. And there was always that tension because of that, But it's great to now be able to sit down and just have convos, agree to disagree, and even learn because, sometimes he says things that I'm like, oh, okay, I was just challenged. I like it. And I wasn't challenged in a crazy way where I'm going to get defensive. And it opens me up too, because for many years I was very closed-minded in the sense of what I think or what I say is the only way. And no one can convince me otherwise. But no, I leave room for it now, to be able to understand what I believe. I stand, tall with it, but I leave room for growth or for just to even empathize with someone else's opinion that doesn't, that I don't agree with or whatever.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the times it's, I don't agree with you, but I get it.
Yeah.
Or so it's like, I understand why you may feel that way or
Right.
where you may be coming from.
Right.
And then a lot of the times that can come from maturity.
Right.
Or other times it can come from things that you seek to develop personally, like you said, like outside things that have allowed you to understand those things.
Right.
And then, so you said in 2019 is when you kind of started to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
What made you want to get into that work? Or was it just kind of like, man, I need something? Or was it like proactive? Did the universe just kind of put it in your face?
The main trigger of it was I had accomplished a childhood dream. I was living in Mexico City for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was extremely in bliss, like extreme happiness
Mm-hmm.
of being in a place that I never imagined I would actually accomplish. I left Mexico City knowing that I was like, it was my time to like let go of it. I had put goals and said, okay, I'm going to do a US tour with this dance company. And once I do the tour, that's it. I'm going to retire from the company and continue doing my thing, right? But I didn't know what that thing was.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay. So when I decide to, finish dancing with that company, I moved back to New York, not knowing what was next and not without a plan. I knew I'm the type of person that I hustle.
Right.
And I always know I'm going to fall into something.
Right.
But what that something was, I had no clue.
TBD.
Right. And so I kind of was like depressed. I was sad and I was lost. I was confused and like, what do I do now? What am I good for? Like, did I make the right decision?
Can I pose a question?
Yeah.
What am I good for or what am I good at?
Both.
Okay.
Because I knew I was good at certain things, but then I also thought like, should I continue that or could I do other things? And it was
Right.
just all, all up in the air. And I was also going through a breakup because a guy that I was dating that, long story short.
So there was
there was an individual, right?
Okay, yeah. So there was a relationship factor.
Yeah.
In addition to
all
all
of
of
that.
those, let's say maybe questioning of where you stand right now in
Right.
this point in time in your life.
Right.
So that had an influence on it. So a lot of things spinning around. And then
that part was very, like, fortunately, something happened right when I moved back to New York. The first week that I moved back, that made it clear. And it was what I needed to be like, all right, at least that chapter with that gentleman is like closed. And I know that he's
calling him a gentleman.
no longer, I know, well.
That person.
That person, piece of shit.
Okay.
No, just kidding. I'm kidding. No. No. I mean, I respect him, but I just knew he was definitely not the person that I wanted in my life anymore. And it made it really easy for me to just cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
And
that happens. And that's a lot. I don't think it makes it easier, but it does make it easier.
Yeah, no, it made
right?
it. In that moment, I was like, like, no, como like we say, no me vas a ver la cara de pendeja. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the one. And so, and it happened so fast that I was like, when you know things, but you just needed some confirmation for whatever reason. Because we have such a good intuition and we ignore it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all the time. And
you have that gut feeling, but you have that esperanza.
And you all,
that it may not, or that it will.
And then sometimes you question yourself of like, am I crazy? Am I paranoid? Am I this? Am I that? Whatever, right? But anyway, so here I was in a journey of confusion, and at the same time, all of this triggered a little bit of like anxiety and depression that I had never experienced in my life. I had never experienced any of these feelings of being lost or confused or being sad, not wanting to get out of bed, feeling like, now what? Just all of these things that I had never experienced in my life. And so I started to search what I could do to like, because I was like, am I going crazy? Like, what am I going through? What is this? What am I feeling? So I just ended up searching and coincidentally found someone who kept telling me about ayahuasca.
So what were you searching? Like, why am I depressed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you made a proactive, let's say, decision to find out what was going
What
on
was happening and triggering me,
and
or
why.
how could I, like, what should I do? Like, what are the resources out there that I can, because I didn't know what to do and I had never talked to anyone. I'm a very, very, I never used to ask for help. I didn't know how to ask for help for anything really. I've always found ways to do things and very independent.
Resourceful.
And yeah, absolutely. So I started to find ways and see like who can I talk to that might be able to help me. And it was hard. It was really hard because again, to open up to people
Vulnerable.
and be vulnerable is a really hard thing to do, especially when all your life you've been taught to be strong and to like,
Or forced to be strong.
yeah, exactly, right? I think my life situations have definitely forced me in many ways to be the strong one and hold the head up and have the like be kind of like the backbone of the family, help the family out. And it's not like somebody told me like that's what your job is, but it's like an automatic thing that you're forced into.
And some people, I think, and that's why I asked, like the self-imposed, not necessarily necessity, but you wanting to be a, let's say, a pivotal role in your niece's life, right? It's not somebody telling you. It's sometimes just things that you on your own
Right.
come to do, and then you make that decision that this is the path that I want to take with this certain situation.
Right.
So,
But even before that role that I took with my niece, when I was young and I would see my brothers in the lifestyle that they carried, they were in and out of jail and they chose to be gang members. I knew I didn't want that from a very young age. And I would see this and, the friends would come around and stuff. There was a moment, and I don't remember what it was that triggered it or what happened, but I do remember within myself saying, I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want that lifestyle. That's not me.
just recognize it.
Yeah. And I did everything in my power to always steer clear away from it. And so if my brothers were up to doing something and asked me for like a favor or something, I would most of the time be like, no, I can't, or just to steer clear from being caught up in the wrong place, wrong time kind of stuff. But by default, I mean, they're my brothers. We live together. There were situations where I shouldn't have been a part of certain things that could have, again, ended up me being getting caught up in jail or whatever, So,
Yeah.
but I always wanted to steer clear from it from a very young age. I knew that it's kind of like unconsciously, I knew that just my life was meant for more than that,
Right.
And so I did everything I could to not be a part of that, But when, life kind of still continues to pull you in a certain way, like it's your family at the end of the day, and there's just been a lot of things. I think I ran away so much constantly that when I was going through that phase of depression, it's kind of like all of these things that I've bottled up that were coming out, that had been very much secluded, very much
Buried.
like, buried, very much like forgotten,
start to surface.
They start to like poke out and come out and be like, wait, what's, because they're there. All that pain is there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's waiting to burst out, and and you keep hiding it and just burying it. And so that's where it started.
It led you to search. What was it? Just like on certain platforms?
At first,
straight out Google.
It was kind of like Google. Yeah, like symptoms of depression, symptoms of anxiety, and then I'm reading. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm experiencing. Okay, so am I gonna self-diagnose? Like, I'm gonna diagnose myself as depressed or what? And so then, just like trying to see, like, what can I do? Okay, so what can I do? Should I see a therapist? Like, where? Okay, what are my resources in terms of that? Like, we didn't grow up ever hearing about a therapist. Yeah, right. My Mexican family, that doesn't exist in our culture. Traditionally, like, we don't have the money to sit down and talk to somebody about our problems.
When I was just talking to my mom about this the other day, and one of the things that she says is that humans, one of their greatest needs is to be heard, right? But most people don't know how to just listen, right? And it's part of the effective communication workshop that she does, and I'm actually going to record her doing that with me, right? And I told my mom, I'm like, a therapist is like, you're basically just paying someone to be your friend.
Yeah, right.
Because it's someone that you can talk to, and all a therapist, in my opinion, is like, what they're supposed to do is listen to you, reflect certain things. Is like, oh, so when you say this, like, this happens, or mirror questions. And a lot of the times when you're trying to talk to, like, even friends or whatever it may be, if they don't know how to communicate effectively, which is active listening, it's like, it's not the right thing, because people will try to give advice or give an opinion or compare.
Right.
And like tell you when certain things, it's like, well, when I did.
Yep.
And it's very difficult to get an unskewed, unbiased opinion.
Right.
And it's just like, I just need you to listen to me. And what a therapist does is help. A therapist is supposed to help you figure things out on your own. Right? Like, you ask questions, and how does that make you feel? And then, like, when you do this, and like, that's pretty much what they're supposed to do, and you pay them to listen to you for an hour at a time.
Yeah, but I also will say, like, at least shout out to my therapist, because she's a baddie.
No work?
No, she's really amazing, and I'm very grateful for her, because she's given me also a lot of different exercises that have allowed me to reflect about myself and like my own patterns, but also to, like, I think, effective ways of finding communication easier. Whether it's with, my mom, for example, or, like you said, listening, like knowing that when someone is saying something or sharing something, like, what your impulse is all the things you said earlier, right? Like, to, like, compare or even give your opinion or say, oh my God, why did you do that? Or something like that, like your feedback. And I think she was definitely the first person that showed me those tools about, like,
to identify triggers.
Right. And to simply just kind of like listen and wait for instructions, in the sense of like, if somebody wants your opinion, they'll say something like, what do you think? Exactly. Or what do you think I should do, etc. Then you give, because they're asking you, then you give what they want, right? And I'm a very blunt person, very honest. I try to be as honest as possible. Before, I used to be brutally honest. I try not to be brutally honest anymore, because not everyone wants me to be brutal. Like, people can't take it sometimes. I understand that.
I think there's a difference between, like, brutally honest. When people say that, it's like, you're just trying to cover up that you're a dick.
Yeah,
right?
I used to be a bitch.
Right? Or
I used to be really mean. No.
Because you can say this, it's like, I'm very direct.
Right.
Right? And that's a little bit different than, like, brutally honest. When I hear brutally honest, it's like, you're going to say some, so it's like, you're going to say some things that were, like, unnecessary. You can convey that message, you can communicate it, But people's just like, I'm brutally honest. It's like,
Okay, so I was very direct because I don't think I was ever like too bitchy with
some
what I
people
needed
are,
to say.
and I'm not saying
No,
you
no,
were,
right.
but it's difficult. And one of the things that, like, I've done parts of this effective communication workshop with my mom, right? And my mom's been into this whole personal development thing, and like all these different types of like workshops to be able to help people for years. And I hated it because I would ask her when I was a kid, like, ¿qué hago? Like, what do I do? And she would never tell me. She would never give me the answer. She would always tell me, like, what do you plan on doing? Like, how do you plan on doing this? Or like, and I would be like, no, tell me what to do. I think
Right.
as most people you want a solution.
Yeah.
Like, I got a problem. Solve
You
it,
want the
mom.
answers, right?
And then she wouldn't give me that.
Right.
But she did give me the tools to figure out how to do it on my own.
Right.
Through, again, asking, like different questions. And then you get better at figuring yourself out, right? So your therapist is giving you those tools that sometimes, again, like, we don't have the necessary background tools to be able to be like, this is how you identify this.
Right.
And then when you do, again, it's up to you to be able to go left or go right or whatever it is. But if we can't even recognize certain aspects of what triggers us or what makes us react in a certain way,
Right.
it's like, then you're...
And you continue to find those. I feel like I've done a lot of work, but the work never stops. It's like continuous and never ending. But it also gets easier, or not that it gets easier, you just understand it differently, I think. And then you start to comprehend yourself and others and empathize, and I think my reactions are not the same from before when I didn't know certain things about myself,
Yeah.
But it wasn't just as easy as that, because even that, I researched things, but I didn't do anything about it. And then I kept, I'm a very spiritual person, and I do Aztec dancing, which is part of my spirituality. And I started that way back in 2009-ish, before, like 2007. So I had always had a connection with my spirituality and connecting to something beyond me, so God, right? And so in danza, a form of prayer is...
Danza kuduro?
No. Stupid. Like, wait, what? No, danza is Aztec dancing. So in Aztec dancing, the ceremonies is a form of prayer. You get together to pray and to connect, and you're connecting to the elements and all of the things that for us is creation, right? It's what, it's like, I can't compare it to going to church because it's not the same, but it's something similar, right? Like,
I think, yeah, there's, so for example, like the Native American that I have tattooed on my chest, like, it's doing a ghost dance.
Right.
Right? So, like, there's ways for you to, I wouldn't necessarily, communication works both ways. Right? But at the same time, it can trigger something for you. So it's just like you're doing like your dance, like your, let's say, outreach, you're speaking through the dance. Right. But then what you're receiving from it is a
spiritual connection.
Exactly.
And an energetic, like, healing even,
force, whatever, whatever kind of synonym you want to throw in there to describe what transpires through dance. Right. Or, and again, maybe in church, it's, we're like, you sing and that's like praising God.
Right.
But like, people speak in tongues.
Right.
And people feel the Spirit, the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Like whatever, however it resonates with other people, it can be accomplished through those avenues and those methods.
Absolutely.
Yep. And you've been doing that for a long time prior.
Right.
But until you started to...
But so because of that, I've done ceremony of temazcales, and which are all forms of cleansing and forms of self-development and self-work. But I think during when I started that, it wasn't like there was something that led me there. It just was something. As a dancer, I kind of connected always like the dancing aspect with my culture, the fact that it's Aztec traditions or Mexica traditions, that I was like I liked it and I connected with it, and but it wasn't because like I was like in a dark place and that's why I did danza. It just happened to be part of like everything. So it just, I developed that, and I would always hear about peyote ceremonies, about ayahuasca ceremonies, about your mission quest and all of these things. But I never had a reason to do it. It wasn't like I ever was like, I'm in such a dark place that I should do this for healing. It was just, I would go and I connected and I was part of the community and part of the círculo and all of these things. But I never thought that I needed it, I guess, because I was always living my life the way I wanted to. And I think once I experienced this depression in this moment of going back to New York, that's when I started to kind of go back into that and think I need that connection again. Maybe I need to do ceremony. Maybe I need to do ayahuasca. Maybe I need to do something more that can help me and figure out why I'm depressed, why I'm feeling anxious, why I'm so confused as to I don't know what the hell, right?
Existential crisis that we
Exactly.
I think at any given point there's people who, I was talking to my friend the other day and he was saying that he's feeling a little off. He's just like, I'm just in a rut. And he was talking about the girl that he's dating, like trying to insert herself in helping him, but he can't identify it himself. Right? So it's just like, if I knew, I would tell you. Believe you me, there's no one who wants to get over this hump more than me. But I don't know. Right. And then I was just like, well, you are going to be 40 soon. So maybe like subconsciously that's something. Because I do believe that people do go through a midlife crisis, right? Or sometimes when people retire, it's like they feel like they don't have a purpose anymore. Like, I'm used to going to work.
Something that I recently heard was is it the nesting phase or no, the empty nest phase. And I had never heard of that, but obviously because I'm not a mother, and I heard that recently, and that makes sense too. Like if all your life you've had your children, and that's your every like that's your day in day out, and then all of a sudden your kids are not there anymore, then it's like, what's your purpose now? Now what do I do? What do I like to do? And I talked to somebody who I cared dearly about that situation because she was going through that, and it kind of was like, I was like, oh shit, I had never even thought about that. That's so true.
So there's things like empty nesters, retirement, midlife crisis, maybe after college where a lot of students or a lot of kids don't know, like, all right, like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Maybe after high school, maybe after college. But at one point or another, I think we probably all experience some sort of existential crisis.
Right.
And then you were not doing the dance because of that, but through you knowing and having experienced that before.
Having that resource already. Just like,
let me grab this over here.
Exactly.
And then apply it because of the situation that I'm in and doing your research. And then I know that you mentioned ayahuasca. Right. You've done ayahuasca, right?
Yes.
And was it like right after that, or was it like dabbling and doing other things, like did therapy first, or?
So ayahuasca came to me because I was in this place and I was working for the Mexican Studies Institute of CUNY.
As soon as you said Mexican, I was like, the cartel?
No.
Like, I was working for the Mexican, I was like, cartel? Okay.
No, absolutely not. Stupid. No, I was working for the Mexican Studies Institute of CUNY, which is all of the universities of New York, the city colleges. And I was the admin, and they were taking the students on a retreat, and I was going as a chaperone. So
that's my kind of field trip,
right? It was a really nice trip, but in this trip, I really connected with one of the other chaperones who was also part of CUNY. She worked for the dean of a department. She was like the assistant of the dean, and she was really, really amazing person. And me and her just connected in combo. And so she opened up and started telling me about her experience with ayahuasca. And so I was like, I've been thinking lately about it and researching it, and I'm thinking of going, because I was thinking about going to Machu Picchu and like doing the whole thing like the way it's supposed to. I mean, I feel like it's the way it's supposed to be done, right? And there's a reason why I say that, but I'll circle back later. But she's like, I do it. I started my healing process, and I've done this and that and blah, blah, blah. And she starts naming all these things, and I'm like, dang, girl, you've done it all. And so she's like, you know, there's actually going to be a ceremony for ayahuasca soon. If you're down to go, let me know, and I will take you. And I was, in that moment, the way I was feeling, the way I had been feeling, I was like a little desperate. I'm like, yes, I want to go. And that experience opened me to the beginning of my journey with ayahuasca. So I did it. It's almost close to upstate New York. Still, you know, kind of.
So you did it in the States?
Yeah, I did it in New York with her. Like, and people that do it, like they do their circles in New York.
Right.
And I didn't know anybody but her. But it was an amazing trip. It was an amazing journey that, again, opened. It was like the chapter 1 of the whole process that continued later. But it was kind of interesting the way it happened. Yeah.
That's one of the things that I think it's not the thing, but I'm like a bunch of strangers, right? And I've never done ayahuasca, but I have done shrooms.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's different things that can, I think, open up the door or window to certain types of enlightenment.
Yeah.
Or again, like personal development or getting to know yourself like a little bit more. And me personally, as hippy dippy, as weak as it sounds or whatever it is like when I do shrooms, I'm doing it for a purpose with an intention. Right. Like I have done shrooms with like friends, but I'm not trying to party and hang out and do shrooms.
Right.
I got things that I need to figure out or that I want to figure out.
Right.
And this helps me. And every time I do, because for me, it comes in stages, right? First, it's that stereotypical, and I think why they use it for like people with PTSD and all these different things, where it's like your mood just gets a little elevated, right? Just it's like, colors seem a little bit more vibrant, your mood just a little bit like better. And then you get to the fuzzy wuzzy stage, and then it's just like, oh, things are looking like a little bit different. And then after that, third and fourth stages, depending on how much you do, it's just like, oh, you're on a ride now. Okay.
Right.
And once you're in between like 2 and 3, it just, to me, it just feels like
it's a little scary, right?
That vulnerability. And again,
it's scary to let go.
Yeah. Do you remember Steven?
Yes.
Panda.
Yes.
He asked me one time, something about shrooms. He was just like, who do you do shrooms with? And I was like, I'll fuck about myself.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? He's like, no, you don't. And I'm like, dude, it's not like I'm racking lines of a Coke and doing them just like off my coffee table and just partying by myself. Like, again, I'm doing it like with an intention. And I would do it on my own at home. And then, again, just me. Like, I'll put on a meditation, right? Or one of the things that has helped me, I think, get better at meditating has been doing it in the bathtub, right? Because I think everybody, when you're starting meditation, it's just like, I can't. Like, so many things go on in my brain. And then I first started to hone in on it with the sauna. I hate being hot.
Nice.
I can't stand being hot. It's one of the things that puts me in a bad mood more than anything else in this world. And I hate sweat, right? And it's something that's very uncomfortable for me. Right. But what I would do is I would just go into the sauna. And for me, like it was...
challenge yourself?
Yes. And it was just like, I'm going to close my eyes. And as long as I keep my eyes closed for 20 minutes, that to me is a win.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know depending on what you think meditation is for, it's not to find peace or serenity or anything like that. It's just to let whatever's happening in my brain go through it. But if I can just sit there, close my eyes for 20 minutes and whatever thoughts come and whatever it may
Just
be.
allow them to be there.
Yeah, that was a win.
Yeah.
But then, and first of all, I used to hate baths, right? I'm a shower dude, right? But when Miguel and I were doing Muay Thai, like I have sensitive skin, and my shins used to get all, like super beat up. And one of the coaches told me, like, take an Epsom salt bath. And I was just like, all right, fine, like I'll try it.
Oh.
And then again, don't like baths because it's hot, right? I'm not taking a lukewarm bath. I'm not taking a cold bath.
Right.
I'm taking a hot bath. And then what I would do is I would just sink all the way down to where like even my ears are covered, and the only thing hanging out is my little cute button nose. So I can continue to breathe, but all I can hear is my heartbeat.
Right.
And that's all I would focus on, is just my heartbeat. And it's just like, so I would do things like that again and have like a meditation on or whatever it is, or like listen to something on YouTube. And for me, it's like a mental workout.
Yeah.
Because whatever you're dealing with, whatever, like we said, like you can try to bury, right? Or you think you're hiding it, but like it's always there. Subconsciously,
it's
always
come
there.
Out eventually at some
waiting
point.
to hide.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, it's, can I continue to do the things that I say or the things that I want to do? Can I continue to be positive? Can I continue to try to like be better and not get down? And it's, again, for me, still recording. Is it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh yeah, 19. Can I continue to look at things in a different light? Because again, like you will, or at least for me, and I've had some dark rides before, where one time I was not thinking about committing suicide, but the topic of suicide was definitely there. And I had a friend I've had one friend who actually committed suicide, and another friend who had an attempted suicide, right? And I was there, and I was in my room, and like your surroundings have a lot to do, and your state of mind when you're going to do certain drugs have a lot to do with how it's going to go, right? And everything just so happened to be dark that day, right? Jorge and Laura were watching some scary movie, right? As they always are, some murder thing. It was cold outside. It was dark in the house. And I remember just being in my room, and it just felt like I was spiraling like out of like a toilet, right? And I remember thinking to myself, when people overdose, I don't think you can overdose on shrooms, not sure. But when people overdose, and I'm like, is it a painful death, or is it, because not only was it did I feel like I was spiraling, I didn't feel that bad about it. Like physically or anything like that. And I was just like, or I wonder if it's like a nice smooth ride, or is it like a painful death? Right. And I remember just like sitting there, and I can hear my mom's voice in my head saying, Diego, ¿qué te pasa? ¿Qué te pasa, Diego? And I remember I couldn't.
Were you on shrooms in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot. Yeah. And that's one of the things oh yeah. I've learned now, and again, I don't do them often. It's only when I'm, trying to figure something out. But I ate half a Ziploc bag full one time, like a half ounce. Oh. Yeah. Like I would just, be like, go downstairs, go get a snack or whatever. And every time I would get up, just take a little pinch or a punch. Oh, God. And I would just take it. And I remember, again, just like feeling I was like spiraling like down like this like hole, just like Alice in Wonderland. Right. And again, it was dark. Yeah. But I've also had the first times that it actually worked for me, the complete opposite. Because I think I was already on a personal high, right? I had a presentation, and I got really good feedback, not only from the people in the audience, but the realtors and the lenders. I had a client who rescheduled on me like 3 or 4 times, and I hit him up, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be at the office in like an hour. He says like, no, Diego. He's just like, I want to respect your time and the weekend. You had told me that you were going to go on a run, and, I rescheduled on you 3 times. Let's do it on Monday. I lied to him, and I'm like, hey, like my shoes are at the office, so I'm going to go to the office anyway, right? And he gave me one of the best reviews that I have. So I was just like, say that again for the camera. So that felt good. That felt nice. And it was the first time that I ran the Claremont loop without stopping. And Jorge was talking about this on another podcast where he's very critical of himself. And he has a motivating factor, which in my opinion is a negative one. Jorge talks shit to himself because he hasn't done enough, right? You could have done more. You could have done better. You could have done this. You could have done that. And he was saying, he's like, Diego has like a different approach to it.
Right.
And that's forced. I force myself to not be negative because just like anybody else.
Because you negatively talk to yourself already, which then in result maybe convinces you that that's what you are, or you know, keeps you low, keeps you down.
And everybody goes through that. I think everybody is insecure and everybody thinks that they're not enough or what have you. But for me, I consciously flip that switch to like not be negative, to like not look at things like in a certain way, because I think we all have people in our lives that we could think of who are just always negative, always complaining.
Right.
So I didn't want to do that.
Or always become victims of their own situations. Like they create situations and then make themselves the victim of it. Like, yeah, absolutely.
We all have a story and you're the author of that story. And if you want to feel bad for yourself, you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And if you tell yourself I'm tired, guess what? You're going to be tired.
Right.
Right? And going to the Claremont loop, and I had tried to run and complete the Claremont loop without stopping for ages. And I would always gas out. Right? And once I knew that I wasn't going to be able to finish it, I'm sprinting. And I would just tell myself, well, I'm doing wind sprints or whatever. And I remember running, and as I was going up a specific part, I was like, all right, come on, let's go, fat boy. And as soon as I said that, and I'm like, no. Again, I'm trying to motivate myself. And for some people, it works. Right? For some people, you need that anger. You need someone or something to fight against. I don't really function that way.
Yeah.
So to me, it wasn't like I am trying to motivate myself, saying like, "Come on," but again,
but in a positive aspect, like telling yourself what you are and what you're capable of doing to push you through.
And that's what I had to do to turn that switch on. And I was just like, no, and I'm like, you are gonna complete it this time. And I'm like, because this is easy. This is easy for you because your whole life has been easy. And then I just start going through all these things in my head where I'm like, when you got the job at Wells Fargo. Easy, right? When you did this, easy, this is going to be easy. Right. And I was thinking about, there's a documentary called Free Solo. The guy who free climbs.
Oh, I've heard of it.
So good.
Just recently, somebody told me about this documentary and told me I should watch it.
You should.
And I can't remember who it was, but yeah, I haven't seen it though.
There's a part where he's climbing it's called El Capitan, right? And they're like, hey, Alex, like, what are you writing in your journal? And then he's just like, this pitch. So like pitches are like different sections that they like climb. So he would do, one, like the different ones and then put it all together. And he's just like, well, and like on this pitch, like my finger strength wasn't like stronger, like, this. And I'm like, El Capitan's as big as the Empire State Building. And this guy knows every nook and cranny to where he's just like, here, I need to be stronger with my ring finger. And I'm like, well, the Claremont Loop isn't that big, but I've been coming here since I was 17. I know that right here, it's going to dip down and I'm going to be able to catch my breath. And then it's going to get a little bit harder, but it's going to be easy. It's going to be manageable. So I finished the Claremont Loop for the first time ever. And I remember calling my mom and I was like, hey, like I'm about to leave the Claremont Loop. Are you hungry? She's like, no, I'm going to go to your Tío Villa's house. I was like, all right, whatever. And then I asked Jorge and Lauren, I'm like, hey, I'm about to leave the Claremont Loop. You guys hungry? He's like, no, we're going out date night. And I was like, fine. So then I was like, oh, I got the house to myself. I was like, and I got those mushies. And they hadn't worked the first time I tried them.
What do you mean worked?
I ate a whole half bag, a Ziploc bag, which was a half ounce. And I am a firm believer of you can always eat more, never less. So the first time I did it, did an eighth. Mm-hmm. And then like half hour later, I started to get a little bit of the fuzzy wuzzies. And I remember Jorge was watching Ant-Man. And I was like, push pause real quick. And he's like, why? I was like, I want to see how much time has gone by. To see, usually it takes 20, 40 minutes, whatever it may be. And it was like half hour. And I was like, ooh, this is going to start coming. Didn't. So I waited like an hour. And then I ate a little bit more. Waited like an hour. Ate a little bit more. And I remember texting that girl and I was just like, hey, I was like, what's going on with these shrooms that your boyfriend gave me? And she's like, well, like you usually have like a high tolerance. I was like, not for a drug I've never taken. And then I hit up my other friend, Alyssa, and she was just like, well, did you smoke? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, well, maybe that's why. And then I hit up my friend who's my little drug guru. And I was just like, hey, will me smoking affecting? He's just like, absolutely not. He's just like, when you're on shrooms, like you're on a ride. He's like, and if you decide to smoke, now you're just high on that ride.
Right.
And then I ate more progressively, and throughout the entire day, again, I had a full Ziploc bag, which was half an ounce of shrooms, and it didn't do anything. So I told that girl I was going to drop kick her boyfriend in the chest. Because I, again, had bought a substantial amount. And the next time that I did it, I remember, and I started smoking weed. I'd done it, like growing up, like a little bit here and there, maybe a couple handfuls of time. But I didn't really start smoking until like in like my 30s. And one day, if my little cousin didn't bring me weed, or if I didn't have any, I wasn't going to a shop. I wasn't going to like Stizzy or nothing like that. And Miguel had given me an edible, but I had put it away in my closet so my niece wouldn't confuse that brownie with her getting it on her own. But it was rock hard. So what I did is I put it in my NutriBullet and made a smoothie out of it. Made it into like a powder. And I'm like, I'm going to do the same thing with shrooms. So I grabbed some, I put it in the NutriBullet, and it went from this much to this much. And I was just like, okay, you did eat a whole bag before, but you're not stupid. Take some of that out. And then I put it in a smoothie. And I was even looking up ways to trigger a reaction. So it's like citrus, orange juice. And I'm like, what movie can I watch? You know what I recommended? Spun. And I was just like, I'm definitely not watching that. I've seen it sober. I'm definitely not watching that.
Yeah.
But I settled on Wreck-It Ralph. And I was watching Wreck-It Ralph when the colors got so bright, it hurt my eyeballs.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, I couldn't even watch it directly. And 20 minutes later, my mom walks in. And do you remember Batman, the one with the scarecrow?
Yeah.
So he comes up with his own potion and
Yeah.
So when he hits Scarecrow with his version of like the poison, the way that Batman looks to Scarecrow, it's this like black leather face, like all smoggy and like disgusting looking. That's what my mom looked like to me. And I remember I was trying to tell her that I appreciated so much the way that she has allowed me to come into myself, into personal development, and my brothers as well, where she never shoved anything down our throats, right? We went to church, but we weren't like a church going family. We'd gone a couple times, checked some out, but they never tried to shove religion down our face or down our throat. And she never tried to shove her personal development stuff down our throat, like the meditation, like therapy, like none of it. She did it on her own. And I was one more to kind of like be more interested and curious about it. And I wanted to express my gratitude for her letting me come into those things on my own, because I'm proud of the man that I am and the man that I can become. And a lot of those things has to do with what my mom has taught me and how she let me do those things. But she looked like Batman and she looked disgusting. And I was just like, Mom. I was like, cambie su puta cara, por favor. And she's like, es que me asusta, digo, Marcelo. She knew I was on something, right? And I'm like, it's fine. Like, I'm trying to tell you all these things. And then once I told her, and she was just like, maybe these things aren't so bad. And I remember, and I was like, crying, expressing myself to her.
Right.
And then Miguel walks in with my niece. And then my mom changed from like that dark cloud, shadowy figure. And I can see her aura.
Right.
And it was like a golden color.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Miguel walked in with my niece, it was just, she came and she was like, hi, Diego. And just white, just like pure white, happy. And all of that, I think, is because my frame of mind, my state of mind from the good presentation, the good review, finishing the Claremont loop, the self-talk that I had allowed me to have that very, very good ride. Mm-hmm. So your surroundings and how you're looking at things has a lot to do with the type of experience that you're going to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes and no, because I actually...
For me.
Right. I actually think that to start off, I have never taken like any kind of drug, or to me, shrooms and ayahuasca and peyote and all of these drugs are medicine. They're a form of medicine. That's the way I see them. That's the way I was taught from the moment I started doing danza. And then that's the way I kind of carried it along with this whole process that I've actually had. And so I've never done anything kind of outside of just ceremonial. Mm-hmm. So when I did it the first time with people that, like you said, right? People I didn't know, people that I had never seen before. But I had a beautiful experience. That was it was a beautiful experience as an introduction to what was to come. But for me, the way I perceive it, or the way in my perspective, it's like every time I've done it, it's a chapter, right? It's a chapter that connects from one to the other to the other. I've never done it recreationally, like where I do it and then I continue on with my day, or like the way you just said. As you were telling me that, I was like kind of in awe, because I've never had an experience like that where I'm like, I've done weed and edibles, but I do it when I've done weed or edibles, I don't do it in the same way that I'm doing ayahuasca, for example. Oh, yeah. And I did a micro dose of shrooms one time. Didn't do that much to me. And I didn't do it to be in ceremony. I did it in the sense of like a recreational way. Yeah. It's like, oh, let's have fun. And my friends were like, let's microdose here, take a little piece. And I wanted to try it to see kind of like the effect of what I felt in the moment, but it never went higher. In comparison to what I've experienced with ayahuasca, oh yeah, it is. Completely it's different in the sense of
morphine.
The experience and even the intent, right? The intent of why I was doing what I was doing. But with what was interesting is that time that I did, the very first time I ever did ayahuasca, I was in a dark place already. Like, I was depressed, I was anxious, I was sad, I felt lonely. I had never in my life felt lonely. So it was like one of the first times that I recognized that I felt lonely, and that felt horrible. It felt shitty. And then I thought, or I assumed automatically, because of how bad and how low I was feeling, that my ayahuasca ceremony was going to go through a very dark place, and that I was going to feel or come out of there feeling like shit and more depressed, and that I was going to cry a lot. Like, I felt like, I know that this is going to bring out some darkness that I need to get out
and see the light.
But it didn't ever. So, from the very beginning of my journey, it was a very beautiful one. And in the moment, you don't realize or recognize motives or reasons, but after is when it all kind of like puzzled together for me. But it was a beautiful, and I remember people crying, like, again, people that because I was around with people that I don't know, that I've never seen and never will see again, but people were crying. There was a guy flipping out, like, screaming, and I thought it was interesting because I was such in bliss and happiness, and I felt like just this euphoria that I was like, I just was in extreme bliss. Nothing was fazing me. Nothing was
affecting
my journey and how I was feeling. I was just happy, and it just kept getting better and better. And there was a moment where I just laughed. I just kept laughing
at him
with myself, not at him, but like I was laughing with myself at the way I was feeling, knowing that I was around so much darkness, which I thought was interesting. And I kind of felt bad. Like, there'd be moments where I'd be in and out, like, oh my God, I shouldn't laugh right now because people are going through it.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can't compare your journey and your experience with anybody else's, because I don't think there's any good or bad trips. I don't think so.
So that's why I'm very selective with the word. I don't say bad. I say it was dark.
Right.
Because parts of it, again,
absolutely,
was dark.
There's dark.
And have you read The Divine Comedy?
No.
Dante Inferno?
No.
So in that book, he's going through hell, through the depths of hell, through the 7 levels of like hell. And I had to make a comparison to someone that I was very close with. And I'm like, you've read that book, right? And I'm like, you're going through hell right now. And I'm like, there's ghouls, because that's what he's talking about. And when he like enters, there's like a sign on the door, basically, like there's no turning back, like whatever it may be. That little like message is, but he decides to go through hell. And as he's going through it, and he's talking about like all the dead souls and all the dead spirits and all the ghouls, and he's going through the 7 depths or levels of hell, but then you come out on top. Yeah. Then you go through that dark forest,
right,
to come out to the grassy meadow, or whatever it may be. So I tell people, it's like, I've had dark rides,
right,
but not bad rides,
right,
because
it's all part of it. And it's kind of part of that transition, that you have to go through that darkness to be able to get to a better place, to get through that. And exactly, the very first one was great, but after that, all my other ones have not been so great. They've been dark. They have definitely been really dark, and have put me. The second one wasn't dark as bad. It was sad. It was understanding and realizing, acknowledging my pain, and acknowledging that I had never taken the time to mourn my brother. And so in that ceremony that I did, but see, what's interesting, again, it wasn't like it happened a week, like next week or 2 weeks later. No, I'm talking about a year later or even more, because I did that ceremony, and it was good. It was great. And then I went on with life, and in my ignorance of feeling better and feeling great, I thought, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm healed. I'm healed. I didn't think I was healed. I knew I wasn't healed, but I didn't think that I needed anything else at the moment. So for me, the secret part of ayahuasca is that it continues to work. It continues to work through you. The moment that you've made the connection with it continues to have an effect on you within your life. Even if you never have it again, it's still having a connection and an effect in you, because that's the way it's like the magic. It becomes a part of you. And so, I went on with life, and then pandemic hit, and blah, 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 blah. Shit happened. And there was a time where pandemic was already finishing, right?
And I came to New York.
People started to, yes, exactly. That's when you came to New York. And then I went to Mexico. Okay, exactly. So I left to Mexico on that trip with my mom. I went to Holbox, and I was in Mexico for 6 months, right? It was actually right when that kind of, again, life started to kind of like direct me again to a place where I was like, you still need to do work, Brenda, right? And the way it happened was, I'm in Mexico for 6 months, working remotely, having a good time, exploring Mexico, getting to know myself a little bit more, because I was traveling alone for the most part. And then I reconnected with someone from my past, in terms of a guy that I had dated that I didn't really like. Long story short, we ended up really kind of going full force and started dating. Turns out he was a narcissist man, and a man who really does this for a living, in terms of like,
remember you telling me about him.
Yeah, so he's a narcissist and what we call in Spanish a vividor, like kind of like the swindler. What was it? Tinder swindler.
That's exactly who you compared him to.
Yes, and so he's that. He is that. Nothing more, nothing less. And and a shitty human, because he uses spirituality and him being yoga and Zen to convince people. And to, he's a very good looking man. He is an amazing actor. He's an actor. And so I had these things that obviously, as me, as an actress as well, kind of gravitating to all of the things that I was kind of like going through too. So it was like easy for him to like hook me. And in a very short amount of time, I kind of, opened up, became vulnerable, fell in love. And after this experience with him, that when I started to see the red flags and see all of the signs of him being a Tinder swindler, and
which sometimes we willingly turn a blind eye to.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I confess, I was 100% guilty of that.
Must be a right-hander.
And right, I confess, and mainly because I now recognize that in the moment I was lonely. Again, I had been lonely, and I was craving love from a significant other. I was craving to have a partner. I was craving to be loved and taken care of, and all of those things that I know are beautiful when you share a real, honest relationship. And so he was giving me those things,
or giving you a taste,
knowing that he knew where I was at. So these motherfuckers know. That's what they do. They're narcissists, and when they see vulnerability, that's where they latch on, because they opportunity, and they thrive off of your weaknesses. That's what this motherfucker did. And obviously I take responsibility, because I was in such a place that I was turning the blind eye to all of the red flags, and I saw them, and I would be present with them, and I would even call him out on it. But he was an expert at gaslighting, an expert at like turning it around on me and manipulating the situation to make it feel like I was the loca, and I was seeing things like, no, what are you talking about? Wait, Brenda, sometimes the mind plays tricks on you, and I would fall for it.
And if you are a person who can communicate well, you can spin a yarn.
You're like an expert at words and being able to convince people that even if you just saw what you're saying you saw, then you start questioning it and saying, wait, did I see that? Am I tripping?
Or
and
interpreting it in a certain way.
Right. Like, and so he expert, pro at it. Luckily, it didn't last long. That like I caught on to it, and I think the thing that kind of smacked me in the face with it, even though I had already gone through some shit with him, was when my mom is a bruja. Shout out to my mom. My mom is a bruja, and she called me one day and was like, Brenda, I don't think this is the man for you. I think this man is playing you. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my intuition as a mother. My instinct tells me that he is a narcissist. And in the moment, I'm thinking, Mom, where is this coming from? Why are you telling me this? What the hell? Whatever. Things unraveled shortly
after. I
matched
with him on Tinder. That's why. No.
I know, right? He asked me for money. No. So things unraveled quickly for me after that, where I knew and I was certain, that's it, I'm done. We broke up. Things were ugly. He obviously, because of his horrible habits and what he knows to do, he tried to find his way back in. But at that point, I was like, done. That's it. And it hurt. I was in pain. I was in deep pain because I had allowed myself to be put in a situation that was very painful. And I felt like a pendeja. Like I felt like, Brenda, you're better than this. You're smarter than this. You have lived your life a certain way all your life. How did you allow this to happen? That in that moment, again, going back to darkness, going back to feeling like shit, feeling lonely, feeling depressed, me vieron la cara de mensa, what the fuck? Like, my friend is like, Brenda, why don't you start therapy? And I was like, I've always thought about it. I've been thinking about it for some time now. I thought about it when I was leaving Mexico, but I just never
Pull the trigger.
pulled it. Yeah, exactly. Or never actually found a therapist. But that situation was the one that made me feel like I need a therapist. I need to dig deeper into all of these things. And then I got a therapist. I was recommended a therapist from a friend. First, I went to one that I didn't really connect with and didn't like. And I'm glad I didn't give up on the opportunity, because I know a lot of people go to a therapist and say, this isn't for me, and give up and never go again.
And they'll say
that's
that,
a mistake.
And they say that at least they tried it.
But that's not the case.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's like dating, right? You don't connect with a guy. That means you're never going to date again. You're going to date again, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to go and try to find someone that you do connect. Well, same thing with the therapist. Like, I didn't connect with that one. Then I was recommended another one, and I connected with her. The funny thing is that, in the beginning, I was hesitant about her because she had a certain trait that even for me, it was like a similarity that she had with the guy I dated, and automatically I was like, I don't want to fucking go with her because she's from the same fucking place that he's from. And it was like automatic, like I'm judging her because I was like, no, I don't want. But then I was like, okay, I'm gonna give her a chance, and she's still my therapist till this day. Like, I love her to death. But okay, so in this process, I start therapy because of this situation, right? But I'm in Mexico, and then I start seeing peyote ceremonies everywhere. So I'm like, I want to try peyote ceremony. I want to try peyote ceremony. So I start looking for it. And for one reason or another, it just doesn't align. It keeps, the day the ceremony, it was my cousin's wedding. So I can't go because it's my cousin's wedding. And then another time I tried to get another one. And again, the time or something, it just did not align. And so I asked one of my friends that lives in Mexico, and I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Guadalajara for some time. Do you know of anyone who does peyote ceremonies? And he said, no, but I know my neighbor. He does ayahuasca ceremonies for a living. Like that's what he does. Mm-hmm. And I was like it kind of like for me was like, oh shit, ayahuasca again? Okay, sure, I'll do it. And I told him, can you get me in contact? And I assumed that he did like what I did the first time, which was like in group session with all these people that you don't know. But I was like, I'm going to do it again. I liked the first time, and the second time, blah, blah, blah. But then once I got in contact with the guy, he's like, oh no, I do private. Like, I can do group sessions, but it's like not communal. It's like if you and certain friends, people want to do it, then I work. That's how I work. Otherwise, it's just you. And I was like, okay, great, interesting. And then that's where my journey started with him. He's been my shaman since that time, which was in 2020. And now he's the only guy I go to. And I make it a yearly thing for me. Mm. And so for
Where is this again?
Guadalajara.
Because the extent of those type of, again, not drugs, but the medicines, I've only done shrooms and I've done it on my own. Yeah. I've always been curious. Again, was one of my reservations, and I guess it still is a reservation of people that I don't know. Or then even the person that you don't know, the person who's doing it, because you don't know anything about that person.
Right. Well, so when that reference was given to me, my friend was like, he's amazing. Like, obviously, like, I've done it. He's amazing. He's my neighbor. But even though he gave me that referral, I remember a friend that I won't name, but she started giving me paranoia because she's such a kind of a paranoid person. But I understand why. As females, we have to sometimes be careful, especially in situations like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, who's this guy, Brenda? I don't know if like you're going to be alone with him and you're going to have this ceremony. Like, is anyone else going? And I was like, bitch, stop fucking like making me paranoid. I was feeling great. Now you're putting doubt. And now I'm like, But I continued to go with my instinct and not allow. And he, oh my God, I love this man. This man has definitely changed my life because it's the medicine, but
Help.
it's the shaman who also
Guides.
helps and guides
Yeah.
and is present and sees. And then the therapy session, because it is therapy. It's a form of therapy. After every single session that I've had with him, we have tea, we sit down, and we dialogue. And we continue to kind of bring out these things that even though I'm already awake, I'm still like, in this like place. And then we start to kind of connect what he sees, what he feels with what I felt, what I saw. And it's a beautiful way of like finding more about yourself, finding more about that journey that you just had. And I've been to him already 3 times, and I'm going again in December because that for me it's like my yearly process, my yearly therapy. And just recently, my cousin went. A cousin of mine who's also a therapist. That's what she does for a living. She's a therapist. She just went to him.
So 5 stars for this.
Yeah. He is amazing.
And how long is the ceremony?
So that depends. It varies. I remember the first time that I went with him, he said that it could take anywhere from like 3-5 hours. But for me, it was really hard to get to the other side because I was resisting. I had a lot of resistance. And I went in, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, the very first time I did it with him, we were supposed to start at 10 a.m. So I got there like at 9, and I didn't get out of there till like 7.
So what is that process like? Can you articulate what it's like? A tea, you drink it, you purge. Like, what is that experience like?
So to start off, the way he holds it is, he does do a cleanse on you before you even enter the space where the ceremony will be held. Yeah. It's like a full cleanse, The place is in his home, but his home is a very beautiful, sacred space. Very, very ecological. His whole house is just out in the wilderness. It's in the middle of a forest. And so his balcony has like amazing view to like a forest in Guadalajara. And you just see these amazing birds that you never really see. It's kind of like, being in a zoo.
Yeah.
The hummingbirds come around and he has a hammock. And yeah, exactly. You see a gorilla.
It's Miguel.
You see Miguel come out, have a banana. And no, I'm just kidding. No. So it's just a very beautiful place. Like he has a very big tree right in the entrance, and then he has a little waterfall. It's just a nice place. And the room where he holds the ceremonies. So ayahuasca it comes from a plant in the Amazons, and they make it into liquid. So they make it, I guess you could say like a tea, but you don't drink it hot. So it's once it's already done and prepared, it's liquid form, and they put it in a little frasco, and they give it to you in a little shot glass, like the little tiny shot glass. And so they, like any other ceremony, yeah, right? You take a lime.
Take a line?
You go like this.
Yeah. He requires you to do a body shot.
No. So, it's through phases. So stages, because he kind of microdoses you to see how you're reacting and how your body is. But before this, there is a full preparation. A week prior, you can't eat meat.
You have to detox.
You detox.
Yeah.
You can't eat meat. You kind of go through a vegan diet. No dairy.
Plant-based.
Yeah. Plant-based as possible. And no meds. No, like...
Nothing in your system to... It's like you want a clean ride,
Right. But aside from even that, as less TV, as less social media, no social media, nothing that triggers your senses too much, like scary movies, like nothing. It's like You have to be more in meditation and kind of like in a quiet space before. Yeah, if you go to work, you can continue doing all of the things you do, but you just have to kind of mellow out and not have anything that's going to agitate you physically, emotionally, etc. Right?
Right.
And the space, he preps it like in the sense of like whatever is going to make you comfortable. Pillows, if you want to lay down, blankets, because your body temperature goes down, excuse me. So you have to have like blankets sometimes if you get too cold, or if you get hot also, like you can, there's different, but he just makes it comfortable for you as much as possible. Right. And so he gives you the microdose and you meditate. In reality, you wait for your body to react, for you to do.
What does it taste like?
It's really bitter.
Okay.
It's not something that is tasty. It's not something that you're like, give me another one. Yeah. Because it's really, really bitter. And it's just very different. It's nothing that you could ever compare it to. Okay. Like, it doesn't taste like anything you've ever tasted. Mm-hmm. Very, very bitter. But even in the first time that I did it took me up to 5 phases to actually fully go. And it's a mix of things. Your tolerance does sometimes have a role in that, like your body, but your tolerance comes from something.
Right.
So the tolerance, whether it's because you're resisting mm-hmm. or because, your body has already endured so much that it's used to kind of getting beaten up here and there.
Yeah.
That it's not like affecting you as quickly. And so every time I've ever gone to him, we go 5 rounds because it doesn't, some people first round, second round, boom, they're gone. They're on the other side.
Yeah.
And so, but he knows and he sees, and there's a communication, which is very interesting. You learn to communicate with the ayahuasca and you learn to hear her, how to hear her. And as the way the ayahuasca communicates with you as the person taking it, it also communicates with the shaman. And the shaman takes usually a dose or 2 with you to be part and present mm-hmm. with you. And so that is usually the way the ceremony is taken. And the whole time the shaman's there to guide you and to see and to give you a little bit more of what you need and take away a little bit of what's too much. And
what does it feel like? Because again, like, so you're detoxing prior from all these different things that can affect, again, medicine, alcohol, meat, social media, all those different things. You get there, you do a meditation, you take it. Maybe you take 1, maybe you take 2, 3, 4. But once you start to feel it, let's say, do its thing, what is it? Is it like a physical reaction? Is it like an emotional? Because I know people purge.
Yeah.
And,
it's a little bit of
things.
all of that. Right. And everyone's different. So everyone's going to have a different reaction. It's never going to be the same. But you start to feel it. You start to sense it. You kind of feel it in your body. Your body starts to kind of tingle a little bit. You actually start to feel kind of like if you, a little burp, like you kind of burp it out and then it starts to feel like it's taking over your whole body. You kind of start to feel it go through your veins. It's interesting. And yeah, some people get cold, some people get hot. But yeah, and people start to feel the desire, the need to purge, whether it's throwing up, whether it's pooping, crying, peeing, whatever. But once you actually let go of that, because the representation of you having to purge is letting go of whatever you're holding on to, right? And sometimes even when you purge, you haven't purged it all out yet.
All out.
And the moment that you fully purge it out and allow yourself, because as you're going through it, sometimes you're like, okay, that was it, but you still have more.
Yeah.
And you just, are you okay?
I'm looking for my vape.
It's right there. Oh no, that's
No,
not it.
it's in my pocket.
You didn't put it over there?
No, it's in my pocket.
People are holding on to things unconsciously or consciously, whatever, and you think that's it enough, but then the medicine doesn't fully work until you fully let go. And then once you fully do, it's kind of like a switch. You go to the other side, being wherever the grandmother tells you to go, because she knows where you need to go. And so, yeah, it's different, and everyone has a different experience. But for the most part, you start to feel it in your body. You start to see things. You start to see things sometimes in color and sometimes dark, you know, again, depending on what the grandmother says that you need to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to do that. Definitely. And I remember my mom asking me about that one time about, I think it was peyote or ayahuasca. I don't remember, because she knows someone. And I was just like, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Because if it's going to help you look at things differently or heal things that maybe, and again, even like your friend's a therapist, doesn't mean she knows everything. It doesn't mean she doesn't need help or a therapist on her own. And again, even though my mom knows all the things that she does and she has a very vast knowledge of a lot of these things, it's like, no, like there's other things that you can do. There's more that you can do. But I think for her, it has a certain like stigma of like drugs or like, and I'm like, no, it's medicine. It's a plant.
Right.
Same thing like I told her when it was like the shrooms. I'm like, it's a plant, lady. And this plant gives you certain insights.
Right.
But do it. I would like for you to do it and to explore something that may be able to help you. But when it comes to any type of drugs, and I'm talking about actual drugs, or medicine, it's like, I don't ever want to encourage someone to do something.
Right.
It's like, I can tell you my experience.
I do think that certain medicines are for certain people. And I do believe that, for example, for me, I was looking for peyote because also my great grandfather from my mom's side is Huichol. He was 100% Huichol. The medicine, the peyote, comes from that area where he comes from, like the indigenous people of Nayarit, Jalisco, San Luis Potosí, are the Huicholes, and peyote, that's their sacred medicine. And so to a certain degree, I thought, oh, maybe peyote will have a better connection with me because it's in my blood and because my great-grandfather was Huichol, etc. And surprisingly enough, I tried to find a ceremony and I couldn't find one for XYZ reason, but ayahuasca, exactly, it led me to ayahuasca because I had already started my journey with her, and she has continued to, provide what I need in terms of my healing, and she it's interesting. Like I said, once you have a connection with her, she's with you, she's in you, and doesn't mean that you can't try other things. You most definitely can, but I also do think that there's a process of doing it smartly because people sometimes get real desperate and start to like do everything and try this and try that. And now you're fucking up with your own process, because I think like I said, there's chapters and phases that you have to complete and you have to continue. And when you're kind of blocked, it's like not reading a full book, right? You start a book, you're 2 chapters in, you put it away and you start another one, and then you get bored after 3 chapters, and then you start another one, and now you have 3 books that you haven't unfinished. They're just chilling there. And then you go back, and now it's hard to go back to the other one because
you've taken in from another book. Yeah,
and because now you don't even remember what's what, right? And so to me, I think it's that. And once you feel like you have fulfilled, at least for me, once I feel like I have fulfilled whatever I have done with ayahuasca, I will always come back to her. But I have already completed a certain level of conocimiento, of knowledge and enlightenment, that now I can try other things. Now I can do and open up another book with something else, because also the ayahuasca medicine is a feminine energy, and the peyote is a masculine energy, and so you're always going to get something different. They're going to give you something differently, and I think it's always going to give you, again, what you need in whatever time of your life or stage you are in your life, and based on what you've experienced or what your life has been. It's going into your subconscious. It's not it and into your ancestral traumas. It's a lot. You go back, and I don't know, maybe in the beginning of your lineage, even, and you experience things, that memories that sometimes are not yours. They don't pertain to you in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of things that some people don't understand. And so I think there's a lot of preparation. That's why there is a preparation for it. And not everyone should do ayahuasca, but not everyone, I just think there's something for everyone, and you, like you said, you can't convince someone that it's for them because it worked for you. And it's a calling. I think it calls you. Just the other day, I was having sushi with a friend, and I'm like, I grabbed the sushi and I put it in my mouth. Put it in her mouth. I put it in my mouth, and I was like, and I got the taste of ayahuasca. And again,
was it wasabi?
No. And again, ayahuasca has a very distinct taste. You can't compare it really to anything. It's very bitter, but it's very distinct. And I was like, and I tell my friend, hey, did this taste weird? He's like, no, here, let me try again. He puts it in his mouth. He's like, nah, it's fine. It's good. I'm like, all right, maybe it was just me, right? So I grab it and I put it again, whatever, eat it. And I'm like, again, I had that taste, bitter. And like, I started to salivate, because that's another thing. You start to salivate a lot. At least I do. And I was like, and then I messaged my shaman, this happened. And he's like, it's the grandmother calling you. She's ready for you again. And it's things like that some people don't believe in. Right. And I get it. But I do feel that. Like, I do understand that there's reasons why, my connection with her happened the way it happened. And why I couldn't do peyote. It wasn't my time yet, know? It wasn't my time to do ceremony with peyote yet. And I continue right now with ayahuasca until I feel like it's done what it needs to do.
Yeah, I need to get that information from you for that person, and go out there and experience it for myself.
Yeah.
Because I think it, I'm always willing to try. Like, if it'll help me, like if there, like it's whatever I can do to grow, to be a better person, to understand myself, to be able to try to again be the best version of myself that I can be.
Right.
I'll explore it.
Right.
And if there is a 5-star review from a close friend who has done it, then I will definitely seek it out.
Yeah. I will definitely give you the info.
Yes. But I think we're all done. It's been a little over an hour, probably more. And then I have a client that I got to call. So.
Okay.
But you're going to be on tour?
I am. I leave on tour September 30th. I'll be nationally on tour with a production. It's called Sugar School. And it is a musical. It's like a little musical targeted for families, kids and families, about Day of the Dead. Mm-hmm. And so it's a beautiful story about a young girl with her mother and kind of how they navigate the holiday, Day of the Dead, and all these things that happen in the process. of her kind of trying to understand her culture better. And it's a cute play. It's a really cute play, and I'm a dancer in this production, and we'll be touring the U.S. from September 30th until November 17th. We start in New York, and I believe we finish somewhere on the what? I don't know. I don't remember right now.
But you guys are going to be out here?
We will be here. We'll be in Downey and Beverly Hills.
What dates?
Beverly Hills, I believe, is October 28th. And then Downey, November 4th.
November 4th.
Yeah.
I will go to one of them.
Okay.
I don't know which one,
You
but
better.
we'll go.
Oh, you better.
Yes, I will definitely be there. But very good conversation.
Thank you.
Glad we did it.
Yay.
Yay. Brenda La Ofrenda on Instagram, everybody.
Thank you. Dingo, I love you.
Love you. Kidding.